This is why we are to blame for the marketplace inflation and how we can fix it. Hi, hello everyone, welcome. My name is Alithia. Today, I will be looking at the inflation that has undeniably been affecting Woozworld. This video was inspired by Noble Woozworld's video, which I will link in the description below. I wanted to expand on it a little bit with some math, some community voices, and some hard truths. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. It's not just the marketplace. Even the shop's prices are ridiculous now, and you're right. There is Wooz inflation, or Woozflation as Noble calls it, but that's a separate issue. That is an issue that is driven entirely by Woozworld itself. What I want to focus on today is the marketplace, because that's where we, the players, set the prices, and that means that we can change them too. This is a disclaimer that you will see screenshots in this video of some outrageous listings, like 1 million Beex for an item that costs 160 woos in the shops right now. I've blurred the seller names intentionally because this is not about shaming people or making them feel bad or sending hate or harassment, none of that. It's about fixing a broken system as much as we can. Part 1. What is marketplace inflation? Let's start with the very basics and get one thing straight. Marketplace inflation in Woozworld is not directly caused by Woozworld itself, though they do have some involvement, and we'll talk about that later. The marketplace is mainly player-driven, which means that it's caused by us, the players, the sellers, the buyers, us. Supply and demand is what determines the prices, so simply stop buying. Even if you want an item badly, if the price is outrageous, which for me is more than 100,000 Beex, which for those wondering translates to almost $16 US, don't buy it. That's the loudest message that you can send, because when you put something on the marketplace for a certain price and no one buys it, what do? Maybe you put it up a second time with the same price? Maybe a third? A fourth? But when does that item sell? It sells when you inevitably lower the price. Yes, an item is worth what people are willing to pay for it. That's how it works. But the handful of people who are willing to drop a lot of money are exactly that. A handful of exceptions, and you're better off not holding your breath waiting for that to happen. If we were to apply this to the real world, things would be much more complicated because that would involve effort, resources, labor, logistics, things like that that go directly into creating something or providing a service. But we don't have that in Woozworld. The items are digital. Yes, someone created them, but every further number of that item is simply copied and pasted. It is not at all comparable to, for example, sewing a whole entire dress from scratch. All of this to say that if you want to fight inflation, the loudest message that we can send is simply don't shop. Part 2. Case study of the Y2K heels. Let's take the hip-hop Y2K heels as an example, and the reason I did that is because this is an item that I personally really want, and I figured, let's just check, see how it's doing. Well, you can buy this item in the shops for 600 woos, which is about $2, but on the marketplace, they're listed for 90,000 Beex, which is about almost $15. That is a 642% markup. The next case study is the fuzzy collections, and this made me laugh out loud like an absolute maniac when I saw it last night as I was doing my research for this video. The fuzzy collection set is in the shops right now and it costs $7. You can get 20 items, which are 4 full outfits, and that's about 35 cents per item, which is a deal. It's a steal, right? It's really good. But on the marketplace, you would be surprised to find out that almost every single item ranged from 14,000 to 300,000 Beex. The lowest total cost would have been 1.9 million Beex, or about $315, and the highest total cost would be 4.7 million Beex, or about $781. That is a 4,400% to 11,000% markup. And yes, no one will buy it at these highest prices, but the listings are still there and they're a part of the problem. It is entirely possible that someone would have looked up this item and accepted their fate, that this is the cost they must pay if they want these items. Now, again, this is if you want the entire fuzzy collection, although I did do some math and I will show on the screen right now what each outfit is estimated to cost according to the current marketplace prices as of this recording. But with that being said, you can still get a rough estimate of how absurd this is. Like I mentioned, the marketplace is entirely player driven, and yet we see items listed for 90,000 Beex, for 100,000 Beex, 150,000 Beex, millions of Beex, and no one buys them because they're overpriced, because sellers don't understand supply and demand, because people think that rare means expensive even when it doesn't, and so they relist again and again and again until eventually they either give up or they lower the price, because that's how economics works. Part 3. Be mindful. This is directly tied to what I said in the previous part, which is always double check before purchasing an item. A lot of items will turn out cheaper if you just buy them with Woos. Much cheaper at that. Here are some examples of bad listings. Really bad. Like delusional bad. These items will most likely, dare I say 99% sure, will never ever get sold for this amount. But people try and try because 1, they most likely don't understand economics and they're hoping to strike gold. And 2, why not? There's no punishment in place. And this, I will admit, is the fault of Woozworld. Other games, such as World of Warcraft, impose a deposit fee when you list something on the auction house, which is the marketplace equivalent. Oh, you're listing this item for that much money? Great! Pay a percentage of that price that you expect the item to sell at as a deposit. Oh, the item didn't sell? You lose that money. Now you'll think twice before putting up a crazily priced item that has close to 0% chance of selling. Woozworld could do this. They could reduce the 20% fee after purchase. That would stop players from getting away with these crazy prices and creating this illusion of how much these items cost, because that's exactly what it is. It's 100% an illusion. If it doesn't get sold, they'll just put it back. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but I need you to understand these listings are not something that you should be going off of. These are best case scenarios that have less than 1% chance of ever playing out the way that the sellers want them to, because we have the power. Let's look at some crazy examples in case the fuzzy collection wasn't enough. This listing is just feeding into the illusion of this item's perceived value. There's no other way to put it. Because yes, while this does not cost that much money, the chances are that someone maybe saw this item, they saw how much it was listed for, and they saw someone wearing that item and, wow, you know, that's a rare item, even though it isn't. Let's be honest, a lot of people just don't really care all that much. The next 2 listings that I have are not at all that crazy. They're not extreme, they're much more reasonable, and you've most likely seen many like them, and you will see many more to come. The first one that I have is the Zaya, or however you pronounce that, Moonlit Cascade hair, which is currently in the shops for 495 woos, and on the marketplace, it's 32,000 Beex. That is a 64% markup. And it's not even rare. The other one that I'm looking at is the basin hair with bandana. In the shop, it is 270 woos, which is 89 cents, roughly. And on the marketplace, it is about 1,100 woos, which is about 20,000 Beex, almost $4. And these are just a few examples that I found through looking over the marketplace for 5 minutes. This is not something that I spent hours digging into just to be able to support my argument, not at all. And if you don't believe me, please do open the marketplace. Check out the prices, see what you see there, because I guarantee you, as soon as you open it, you will see items that are listed for thousands of Beex. And with just a little bit of research, you will find that they're not worth that price. Part 4. Not every item is overpriced. I want to be very clear. Not every item on the marketplace is overpriced. There are fair listings, reasonable sellers, reasonable prices for items that are no longer available, for example. But you don't need to buy the absurd ones because no one really will, and people will be forced to adapt. If we stop buying these overpriced items, the market will correct itself. That's simply how supply and demand works, and people are interested in getting money, but there also need to be rules in place, and that's where Woozworld is not really doing everything that they could be doing. Now, I could talk at length about the fear of missing out, the FOMO, the limited items, but that is something that almost every game does now, unfortunately. It's just too profitable. As much as I hate to say it, and as much as some people may hate hearing this, we are playing a game, we are being given a service, and the developers need to break even. And Woozworld themselves have admitted that it's difficult to stay afloat right now, especially when browser games are not really doing well. Part 5. Beex can be free, but the grind isn't worth it. Let's talk about Beex. There are a couple of ways of earning Beex, but none of them are good enough. For every item that you scan or farm or take, for example, stones, plastic rubbles, all of those things, you will get about 1 Beex, which is 1 Beex. It's better than nothing, but it's nothing. You can also do the works and earns jobs. The longer the job, the bigger the payout. That makes sense, right? Except a 2-hour job will give you 150 Beex. A 10-hour job will give you 650 Beex. A 12-hour job will give you 750 Beex. To earn the 90,000 Beex that I wanted for the Y2K heals, I would need to do 600 jobs at 150 Beex, which is 1,200 real-time hours. And keep in mind, this is if I did it every 2 hours. This is if I did not sleep, if I did not go more than 2 hours without resetting, meaning claiming and restarting the job. I farmed wood in the forest for over 5 hours, probably 10, let's be honest. I turned it into planks, 5 wood for a plank. I sold 200 wood planks for 500 Beex each, and that is 100,000 Beex. That barely covers the item that I wanted. Hours upon hours of farming in this game for just 1 item. Because the perceived value is that high. Is it worth it? Not to me. Ultimately, you decide if it is. But to me, that is insulting. And this is where I would like Woozworld to step up. While the Beex are free, it's not accessible. But unless you want to spend over 1,000 hours grinding for a pair of heals, you're going to pay with real money. And when sellers are asking for 90,000 Beex for a 600 Wooz item, they're banking on your impatience. Don't give them that power. It is in your hands. Now, we're moving on to a different topic, and that's the GrabZ problem. So let's talk about it. Unlike some other games, Woozworld allows duplicates. Before you get the one item that you actually want, chances are you're going to get a lot of other items, some of them repeating. That is gambling. A post on Reddit said that a person had spent over $200 and never got the item that they wanted. That is deliberate, as much as I hate to admit it. Life Makeover is a game that I adore. It's the main dress-up game that I play, and it's a game that I have spent quite a bit of money on over the last couple of years. 2, to be exact. The outfits there can cost between $250 and $500. But there's a pity system. There's no duplicates until the full set is complete, and you know that you'll get everything eventually. But not only that, you can get them for free as well. When I say that I've spent quite a bit of money on the game, that's true. But not for the outfits. Instead, I've spent them for certain animations, certain aesthetic packs, small purchases here and there. The outfits that I have are acquired entirely for free. There are a lot of people who spend hundreds on the outfits there, and more power to them. But the reason they do that is because they're secure in their decision. They know they will get what they're paying for, even if it costs them a lot of money. As a free-to-play player, you're expected to spend anywhere from 17,000 to 24,000 diamonds on a full 6-star outfit, and you earn about 100 diamonds a day just by doing 7 minutes of work. You can get more diamonds because of events and because of other things like that, so it's not an exact thing, but with discipline, I have earned the full $250 to $500 outfits for free in 6 to 8 months, while simultaneously getting every single outfit from the constant, multiple times a week events that give you high quality items. In Woozworld, you grind for hours, for days, and still barely afford one item. And that's not even touching the gacha mechanic, where you may never see the item that you really want. That is a big problem, because not only is that gambling in a game for kids. Because even when Woozworld becomes 16 plus, that's still kids. I've spent money in Life Makeover, and I don't regret it. In Life Makeover, there's a limit. There's a structure. People feel safe spending money, even if it's a lot. Woozworld, however, you can spend $200 and still not get what you want. That's why the marketplace is so inflated. I didn't want this video to just be my opinion, so I asked Woozens directly. And you, fellow viewer, agree with this sentiment. I asked random Woozens the following questions. 1. Do you feel like there is an inflation on Woozworld, both in the shops and on the marketplace? What is the maximum amount of Beex you would or have spent on a single item on the marketplace? Why not? 2. Would you say that you are less, equally, or more likely to spend on GrabZ if there was a pity counter, bad luck protection, reduced chance of duplicates? Here's what you said. Part 7. Your voices and your regrets. One person in particular told me that they spent 1 million Beex on a single item and that they're broke now. Another person who goes by Inky389 says that yes, they do feel like there is an inflation and they've spent about 300,000 Beex on a single item in the marketplace. However, it was for a VIP hair. Personally, I understand. I don't necessarily have a problem with this because like I mentioned in the previous part before, there are certain items that are worth what people are willing to pay. And at that point, the only thing or entity that can have any sort of regulations is Woozworld, because they can say, you know what, this item in particular, this is the maximum that anyone should pay for this, or this is the minimum. But again, what I'm focusing on in this video is particularly items that are either not that well known, are otherwise obtainable, but they're made to look like this crazy thing, and also items that are repeatedly in separate grabs, so it's not like they will never come back again. That's where the problem lies. Inky389 goes on to say that they would for sure be more likely to spend more on GrabZ. However, sometimes you want duplicates of items too, so that's a hard one. And I completely understand that point. Sometimes you do indeed want duplicates, so I offered a different solution in turn. I said, perhaps there could be a pity counter. For example, every 10 rolls guarantee a higher quality item while the duplicate chance remains the same. And they said, yes, I like that idea. Moving on to Wraith Song, I asked them the first question and they said, I spent over 40,000 to get something I wanted. Please don't do the same. That is about $130. And they made it very clear that they regret it. The next person I asked is Vague Dreams, and they agreed that there is indeed inflation when a single hairstyle costs 600 to 900 woos. But they also said that they don't really spend any money on here anymore, meaning that they did in the past, because the new items are kind of trash. Obviously, that is a subjective opinion, but I think it goes to show that players who used to spend money are no longer really doing that. Another person says, Woozworld don't know how to market things. One minute, they want you to rely on Wooz, and then the next, they want Beex to be the main currency. Things fluctuate way too much for them to claim control. I'd say the most I'd spend depends on the item and its availability. Again, completely fair point. If it's something that is no longer obtainable, that's entirely up to the players and the people who are interested in buying it, but the average player probably is not a collector, and they probably don't want to collect every single rare item or old item or unobtainable item. I asked them my second question, and they said, yes, I would be more likely to spend on GrabZ if there was a pity counter, bad luck protection, or a reduced chance of duplicates. Among these people, there were also people that did prefer to remain anonymous, but overall they shared the sentiment, yes, having a pity counter would make me feel like I'm more likely to get the things that I want to get. Why would I not spend in that case? Right now, I do not spend because there's simply no proof and no guarantee that I will get the item that I want. This is where I would like to extend my gratitude to every single person that answered my questions and helped me put this video together through their opinion, through their voice, all in the hopes that Woozworld will hear the community and perhaps make some changes for the better. What is my final message? So far, I have talked about supply and demand. I've talked about how not every item on the marketplace is overpriced. I've talked about the GrabZ problem, how gambling is a little bit too rampant, and how I feel like Woozworld should step in and do something about it. If you want to fight inflation, don't stop complaining, but also Stop buying. Let overpriced items sit. Let them expire. Because when no one buys, the prices are forced to drop. And that's how we take back the marketplace. That is where our power lies. Send a message with your wallet, virtual or real, and remember that we are the ones that get to decide the value of 90% of the items. That was a video that I've never done before, but honestly, I really like doing it. I hope you found this video interesting. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so incredibly much. It is people like you that give my platform a voice and more reach to potentially make a change. I hope you have a great day or night, depending on where you are, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.